สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ so this is part 2 of our book review on how to win friends and influence people written by Dale Carnegie. Now this second part is called 6 ways to make people like you, and it is divided into 6 different principles. But before we talk about that and before we dive into that, I think it's really useful to talk about the main concept of the second part of the book.And if it's anything that you should take away is an understanding of human nature, that fundamentally people are only interested in themselves. Again, people are only interested in themselves. Now, I know that sounds mean, I know that sounds harsh, but bear with me here because the book is not trying to illustrate that as an attack on human beings.The author, Dale Carnegie, is not saying this as a way to criticize people. No, that is not the intention. The intention is to understand our own nature better, to understand our thought processes, our thinking processes, what occupies our mind, what motivates us. And if we can understand ourselves better, of course we can understand other people better, and that helps us build meaningful connections with them. So,people only take interest in themselves. Why? Think about this thought experiment. When is the last time you took a group photo? And when you checked out that photo, who did you first look for? Of course, probably yourself, correct? This shows that for the most part of the time, right, we tend to think about ourselves. Our thoughts are preoccupied and concern ourselves. We are therefore interested in ourselves. But if you understand this deeply, then you can see the connection that, hey, perhaps if we are the one to take the first initiative to show a genuine and authentic interest in the other person with whom you are trying to connect with, then more than likely they will also show interest in us as well. So you see, this leads to different principles, which is principle number 1.Become genuinely interested in the other person. The key word is genuinely. You have to come from a place that is sincere, that is frank, that is authentic, and that is genuine. Your desire to take interest in them must come from the heart. You're not doing it because you want something from them, you see. To better illustrate this concept or this first principle, I'm going to use the example given in the book. Now, one of the reasons why I really like this book is because it gives so many examples for us to learn from, and they're really, really powerful examples. And the one that I'm going to talk about now is from President Theodore Roosevelt, who used to be President of the United States. President Roosevelt was well known for his incredible popularity and his incredible ability to connect with other people. So,To better illustrate, just let me read this passage for you right here and you'll see what I'm trying to say. Okay, so here we go. That too was one of the secrets of Theodore Roosevelt's astonishing popularity. Even his servants loved him. His valet, James E. Amos, wrote a book about him entitled Theodore Roosevelt, Hero to His Valet. In that book, Amos relates this illuminating incident.My wife one time asked the president about a bobwhite. Now, a bobwhite is a bird, and I believe it's native to North America. A pretty beautiful bird. So again, my wife one time asked the president about a bobwhite. She had never seen one, and he described it to her fully. Sometime later, the telephone at our cottage rang. Amos and his wife lived in a little cottage on the Roosevelt estate at Oyster Bay.My wife answered it, and it was Mr. Roosevelt himself. He had called her, he said, to tell her that there was a bobwhite outside her window, and that if she would look out, she might see it. Little things like that were so characteristic of him. Whenever he went by our cottage, even though we were out of sight, we would hear him call out, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, Annie, ooh, ooh, James." It was just a friendly greeting as he went by.How could employees keep from liking a man like that? How could anyone keep from liking him? So, I think it's pretty clear here, self-explanatory. But you see, the genuine interest that in this case, President Roosevelt is showing to his valet's wife, it comes from the heart, right? You know, he's obviously a very busy man, President of the United States, but he still has time to think about the people around him, to think about the people who work for him. And that genuine sincerity, not only does it come from the heart, but it requires deliberate attention and focus. It is almost as if it is one gift that one human can give to another, you see? That gift, it shows the other person that you appreciate them and that you see that they are important. That is the key, that is the power of this. So being genuine is the biggest point to underscore over and over and over again. It takes, in order to be genuine, it takes the focus of your fully undivided attention to want to bring value to the other person. And it is like an end in itself. You're doing it just because, you know, it makes you happy and it makes them happy. So think of it that way. So this is the power of being genuinely interested in the other person. Who do you think is gonna admire Roosevelt? Of course, the people who he has shown this level of genuine interest in, right? That's how you earn respect, that's how you earn admiration from other people, and that's how you connect with them, right? So that's a really, really powerful point. Second principle, smile. Now this can't be underestimated and understated even, right? We might think, okay, come on, smile is obvious, right? Smile is nice, right? But actually, if you really pay attention to yourself, ask yourself how often do you smile? And really contemplate on that. Why is a smile powerful? You see, a smile brings a positive attitude, an uplifting spirit to the table, and people can really feel that. Therefore, again, if you fake a smile, if you give an insincere grin, people can feel that and they will hate that, they will detest that. But a genuine smile comes from the heart. And people admire that because it reflects your mental attitude. It reflects your inside. It reflects that you're happy on the inside. And it lifts the team spirit. It lifts the, as I said, spirit of the people around you. It brings a positive value to the table. As a matter of fact, a smile, a genuine smile that comes from the heart, is so powerful that it can even be felt through a telephone call. It will be expressed through your body language and therefore your tone of voice. Another example that the book used was, in this case, there was this PhD graduate. So somebody who just finished his PhD studies in computer engineering, computer science, and he was looking for a job. And of course, this was way back then. This book again was published in 1936. So obviously somebody with a degree, a PhD degree in this field is going to be in very high demand. This person with this degree could get any job from any big company he wanted. And he talked on the phone call interview with many different potential employers and managers of big companies. Guess what ended up happening? What ended up happening was this person ended up choosing to work for a small company, which could not compete with the big ones. One day, the manager that recruited this PhD graduate asked him, with your qualifications, why did you choose us? You could have gone to any big company that, that were looking to hire you. And at first, the person paused and thought about it. Then he gave this amazing response. He said that when he was on a phone call with the managers from the big company, he felt it was a cold conversation. He felt like the managers just saw him like another business transaction, right? But when he talked to this manager from the small company, he felt that the manager was happy and glad to hear his voice and that he genuinely wanted this guy to be part of their team. So you see the power of a smile that can be communicated even through a phone call, because as it turns out, the manager who recruited this person was probably smiling as he was about to interview this person. It came from the heart, and even that can be communicated through your tone of voice, through a telephone call. Obviously, the manager, having heard that response, he saw the power of a smile from that day on. He kept on reminding himself the power of a genuine smile. Next principle, this one I really like because it's one that I struggle with personally, is remember their name. Now, I like this one because I personally am bad with names. But really contemplate on this one. Really think about this principle really deeply. You see, names are important because it is the one thing that we as an individual have the complete ownership of. It is like music to our ears, right? Whether or not we'll think of it that way, but that's really what it is. When somebody takes the effort to learn our name quickly and calls us by our name, it really impacts us in a positive way. Think about the last time somebody remembered your name when you didn't really expect them to. How did you feel? Did you gravitate towards them? Did you feel warmth? Did you feel that you wanted to connect with them more? Most likely so, right? As a matter of fact, our very nature, we treat our own name so dearly that think of all the wonderful libraries and museums and buildings, right? What were they named after? They were named after the people who made, tremendous donations or contributions to those institutions because it was their way to leave their mark and their name on the world, correct? So it's really important and also cannot be stressed enough that to remember somebody's name is really important if you're looking to connect with them and build meaningful relationships and make people like you, right? And I like this principle because I have to admit, I struggle with names a lot. I'm bad with names. But I have to say, when I think about this as I was reading through it, when I think about people who remember my name when I didn't think or expect they would, it's really, really uplifting. And it affects our attitude towards that person in a very, very positive light. Which brings us to the fourth principle, be a good listener. Now, being a good listener, in other words, being an active listener, is a vital communication skill in and of itself. But to really understand this, you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of being a listener? Is it to listen in order to think about some witty reply so that you can tell the other person why your opinion is superior to theirs and therefore they are wrong and you are right? Or is the purpose of listening just to understand them? You want to listen just to understand them, right? You're listening with empathy. You're listening with your heart. You're really intently trying to figure out and follow along with what they are trying to express. Therefore, from this perspective, a good listener is one that can encourage the other party to safely, express his or her opinion or viewpoint on the issue, on the matter, on the subject as clearly and as articulate as they can possibly do. Nothing more. That's it. So in this sense, listening is like an act of giving as well, right? You're listening with empathy because sometimes, especially if they need to get something off their chest or vent something out, you'll find that just listening helps them to process what they're going through emotionally as they speak out their mind. And therefore, it helps lift some sense of burden off their chest, right? So you'll notice that in many conversations that lead to a meaningful connection between two people, sometimes the listener barely has to say anything. Isn't that wonderful? And isn't that really, really insightful to think about? Why is that so? Because your duty is to encourage them to express themselves as clearly as possible and let them do it in a way that they feel safe with you because you're not judging them, correct? And that can be an activity in and of itself. First of all, you have to understand that a good listener has his or her full undivided attention with the speaker. So you're fully concentrated on the speaker. You're fully, focused on what they have to say. And that focus is reflected in your body language, right? When you nod, your eye contact that you maintain, right? The gestures of your body, that show that you are following along and that you appreciate what they have to say and that you're not here to judge them or make some sort of conclusion. You're just here to understand along with them. That's very, very important. And anybody who can achieve this is a good listener, and you can bet that the other person will feel more inclined to look at you positively and to want to connect with you more. Because why? When you listen to them with your heart, with empathy, you're taking interest in them. You're taking genuine interest in them. you genuinely are interested to understand what they're trying to say. Now, to illustrate this point about listening with empathy and listening with, being fully present with them, I want to borrow again another passage from the book that illustrated a former Harvard University president, Charles W. Eliot, who was a very, very good listener. So the passage goes along the lines of this. Henry James, one of America's first great novelists, recalled, Dr. Eliot's listening was not mere silence, but a form of activity. Sitting very erect on the end of his spine, with hands joined in his lap, making no movement except that he revolved his thumbs around each other faster or slower, he faced his interlocutor and seemed to be hearing with his eyes as well as his ears. He listened with his mind and attentively considered what you had to say while you said it. At the end of an interview, the person who had talked to him felt that he had his say. So you see what this illustrates is that listening is an activity in and of itself. You're not a wall, right? It is reflected, your attention is reflected in your body language, your eye contact, the nodding of the head. Maybe you ask some small questions to get them to elaborate on an issue, to show them that you're really following along. This is one of the biggest forms of respect, and compliments that you can give to another person, because you're showing them that you appreciate and value what they have to say, right? As a matter of fact, another example used by the book is one story about Abraham Lincoln, former U.S. president. During the peak of the Civil War, of course, President Lincoln was very stressed about what to do with the slaves, whether or not to free them. Thinking about this, being stressed about this, President Lincoln invited an old friend and an old neighbor to the White House just to talk. So the friend came to the White House and talked to Abraham Lincoln. However, the friend barely did any talking. Lincoln talked. And by the end of it, Lincoln finished the conversation himself. So Lincoln didn't really want to hear his friend's opinion on the topic about the decision that Lincoln had to make. But you see, talking, right, allowed Lincoln to lift a big burden off his own chest. So his friend, who was a good listener, very present with President Lincoln, with Abraham Lincoln, was able to provide that empathy to Lincoln, to provide that focus of attention, to show that, hey, what he has to say, what he has to think is important, right? And everybody wants to feel appreciated and important. And as a speaker, sometimes, when the other person is just listening and following along, maybe not even saying anything, but it helps us process what we're saying. And that is a value in and of itself. It's really valuable. And that's why we all love good listeners. So it's important to be a good listener if you want to make people like you, okay? Now, the last two principles are number 5, talk in terms of the other person's interests. And number 6, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. Now, I want to group these two together because there are two stories, again, from the book that really illustrate this point clearly. One story had to do with the student of Dale Carnegie. Now, Dale Carnegie, in addition to writing this book, he also used to lecture on these topics. He used to lecture about how to win friends and influence people, and communications in general. And one of his students was a lawyer from Connecticut. And the story goes that this lawyer with his wife went to visit an aunt, his wife's aunt. And he was talking to the aunt. And in her home, he was trying to practice the teachings of Dale Carnegie. So I thought, why not, right? So looking around, he asked himself, what is it that he could be genuinely interested in this old lady's home? So he found that the house was very beautiful, and it reminded him of his childhood home where he grew up in, because he had a roomy home, very beautifully decorated. Of course, the lady, after hearing the lawyer ask about her home, she felt very happy to share the story of her home. She went around showing the various collections that she and her husband had collected throughout the years on their various trips to Europe, to France, etc. Right? Showed around the different areas of the house, and then they went to the garage where this lady had a car there. It was a Packard car, and this car had huge sentimental value to her because the husband had just bought her this car recently before the husband passed away. Now, throughout this entire interaction, it was a genuine interaction. The lawyer was really interested in the various things that the lady had to share, the aunt had to share. By the end of it, guess what happened? To the lawyer's surprise, the aunt, right, the aunt of his wife, said, you know what, I want you to have this car. Big surprise, obviously. That's an incredible gift, something that has huge sentimental value, right? This lady wants to give it away to the lawyer. Why is that so? Because the lady felt what she had long lost, right? You know, in old age and facing the years alone, and of course the husband passed away, we all long to be appreciated, and we all long that feeling of importance, the desire to be great, as the book mentioned in the previous part. And talking to this lady in terms of that lady's interest, right? Showing around her house, the car, right? Which came from a genuine desire, right? The lawyer was really interested to hear what the lady had to share. It gave this sense of importance to her that had been long deprived because she was, you know, growing old and by herself for a while now. So you see, it was genuine and sincere from the lawyer's end because he did not expect to get anything in return. Of course, he did not engage in this conversation in order to manipulate the lady into getting the car. Of course not. As a matter of fact, the lawyer didn't even want the car. He felt bad for taking it, but he had to take it because he did not want to offend her. That's how much he wanted to give the car away to the lawyer. So you see the power of talking to other people in terms of their interests. We all long that feeling of importance. So hopefully these stories given by the book, the examples given here, can help tie these 6 principles for you and help illustrate for you to see the bigger picture, that in order to win over the hearts and the respect and the admiration from the people around you, you have to come from a place of sincerity, a genuine desire to take interest in them. Be a good listener, remember their names, smile. Or whether it's in the example from President Theodore Roosevelt, you know, your thoughtfulness will be reflected in your dealings and handlings with other people. Being considerate of other people and being thoughtful about them really helps you to build meaningful connections with other people. And people can feel that sincerity. And to really bring this point home, again, this is about sincerity. You may argue that if you're being insincere, you know, you can still get away with it, pretend to take interest in them. Again, as I said in the beginning, it may work only in the beginning, but over the long term, you're not fooling anybody but yourself. Because in order to come from the heart, to come from the right place, you have to give them your full undivided attention. You have to be thoughtful and considerate of them and pay attention to them. And you cannot do that if you're listening in order to generate some sort of reply to get them to do something for you, right? You're not fully present with them. And people can easily pick up on that sooner or later. And you're fooling nobody. And even if you get successful through those means, you're still going to miss that basic element, which is the human touch, which is what brings people together and connects people to build meaningful relationships. So in order to really bring these points home, I want to propose an idea for you to try to practice this. The next time you encounter somebody who has no way of doing anything in return for you, say a cashier at a convenience store or a bus driver, try to express your gratitude or say thank you or show your appreciation, right, that comes from a genuine place, right? And try to be very present and focused as you do it. I'll give you an example. For example, when I go to 7-Eleven, some days when I'm on the phone and I pay for my soda or whatever, and I say thank you, because I'm on the phone, I'm not present, right? So it seems very mechanical. But some days where I'm not on the phone and I try to practice these principles, I will notice that when I say thank you, it'll be more focused. It'll be more concentrated. I will want to deliver that message of appreciation to them in a more sincere, frank, and genuine way, right? It will be reflected in my body language. I will perhaps nod to them in acknowledgement and appreciation of their service and hard work. And this, you can see the difference right away. Of course, when you're very mechanical in your thanks, it's just a very, 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 very mechanical transaction. But when you're more present, when you're more concentrated, when you're trying to do it from a genuine place, they can pick up on that. And maybe you'll see a smile on their face, and that will brighten up both your days. So this takes practice to do, and I encourage you to try that. Or another one that I want to share is observe somebody that you know, that you look up to, right? Somebody that you look up to for his or her ability to win over the hearts and respect and admiration from the people around them. Try to observe what special and what unique characteristics they have. The way they carry themselves, the way they pay attention to others, the way they listen, the way they talk, the thoughtfulness that is reflected in their wordings or when they speak, the considerateness that is reflected in how they speak about other people, right? Try to observe these things, these characteristics, and you'll start to really learn about these principles even more. And try to compare and contrast that to other people who you may feel is not really able to impact you as much, right? Perhaps a boss or a manager or a coworker who, you might not be too fond of, for lack of a better term. So really, really try to learn through those both methods, right? Observation and also practice. And I want to end again to illustrate the point that if you think you can get away with being insincere, or you're showing interest in them as a way to manipulate them in order to do something for you, I guarantee you will just be fooling yourself in the long run. To really bring this point home, I saw a video the other day from Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, Gary Vaynerchuk, he's influential content creator and an entrepreneur in America. And he was talking about one of these experiences, one of his incidents where he was flying into another place to give a talk to some convention, and one of his fans tried to message him and said, "Hey, I demand to pick you up at the airport. I want to really provide value for you here," right? So, what do you think? How do you think Gary felt? Do you think Gary felt that was a sincere, thoughtful, considerate act, or do you think Gary felt that that person acted out of selfishness because he wanted to get something from Gary by being nice to him? You see, people can pick up on this very quickly. So I just want to make this point very clear and emphasize on this point again that it has to come from the right place if you really want to win friends and influence people. So that's it for now. Thanks very much for watching. Please like the video for me. Please share the video for me if you thought it was valuable. And stay tuned as we continue with the book. And I hope to share more thoughts on this subject and topic as well. And I recommend you to pick the book up if you haven't, because it's really, really insightful. And you can keep on revisiting it over and over and over again. Because these principles, again, they're easy to understand, but it takes practice to really embody them in our everyday life. Thanks for watching. Please like my page if you're watching Konpop on Facebook, or subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell notification button if you're watching on YouTube. That's it for now. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. สวัสดีครับ